Right. Comments, questions?
I think that would be great, but I think you, in a way, as a performance, you need to, when you were doing, I personally felt that you needed more information, you needed to be throwing more stuff at us.
Ah, yes.
You know? So it's like you were very concerned about getting the button, which is great, and that's fine. But we needed, you could have carried on. That could almost be something that you're doing, you know, like, you could have kept on the performance. It seems to stop.
Yeah, that's something I've really considered doing, but right now I just haven't had the dexterity to do both things at once. And it kind of reminds me of that thing people say where women can concentrate on several things at once, and men are more focused into a single thing. Anyway, might be a good thing. Yeah, that was possibly.
It's a very good way of talking about the cultural issues and roles. I had some new housemate once, and one walked in on me ironing a shirt, and she was Italian, and she was like, I've never seen a man iron a shirt.
There you go.
Very strong role going on, and it's not a sexism issue. It's very much a cultural thing. It's very difficult to. Doesn't matter how much you change, how much the world changes. That cultural habit is incredibly strong.
The thing is, you haven't actually sewn a button, have you?
Yeah.
Well, I have sewn buttons on my
what you've done there, you haven't sewn a button.
No.
You've taken your heart tool, drilled a wall, used metal instead of thread, and then you have a fuck-off button made of wood. It could be more masculine if you had tried. So I do hope you're not trying to make the point that, oh no, all genders should be able to do all roles and all these cultural conventions are rubbish, because you're actually not telling that, you're saying quite the opposite, right?
In the beginning, when I'm doing the MA right now at Chelsea, and in the beginning when I started the MA, I was actually trying to approach the question in that way, that, let's say, serious way, where, you know, I was quite trying to say exactly that, all genders can do everything and blah blah blah. I never actually got anywhere with that, and I think there was a lot in what I was doing that was kind of like this. It was a man trying to do something that in his culture is deemed female, and trying to make it look manly in some way, and failing miserably, because at the end of the day it was all just pointless. My attempts to make things look manly just made them useless, just made them pointless. So in a way I felt it was more relevant to kind of make a satire out of that than to actually approach it.
So you're trying to be the bad guy, you're trying to get me annoyed with you. I mean, that's very serious. You're trying to get me, like, to dislike you a little bit.
In a way.
So as to make a point. Are we on the same page? I mean, I'm not going to reveal whether I do or do not respect that position. I'm just asking you. Would you want me to actually think, who does he think he is? To then make a point. I mean, are you sacrificing your credentials at the altar of gender equality?
Wait,
are you just not aware of gender equality?
Just to clarify.
So yeah, I'm making my point very clearly. I said I wasn't going to say whether I would respect one answer or the other, but I think I'm making it very clear which side, which one of you I would prefer, the one I would hate or the one I would like. Or
just a question on top of that to clarify that question. Would I be sacrificing my credentials, let's say, as an artist, or
no,
as a man?
As a person committed to gender equality.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, I think there is some... Do you know that kind of thing people say where there's always some truth to every joke, or to every game. I don't know how that
Yeah,
goes.
you pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm trying to come into that area where I'm making a big joke out of this, out of gender equality, but in the end still wanting people to think about it in a way, to think about what side are they on. Are they happy with the traditional male roles? Are they happy with the current situation? Are they happy with the way they are? Specifically, yes?
What do you think about, or maybe finding a new technique that isn't as a way to sew a button that is completely not related to like women or men in particular? Is there a way you think you could then reintroduce this subject or as like gender equality, but do it in a way that you can find a technique that would be completely separate from that?
There is, I think, one risk in doing that, which is avoiding the gender discussion altogether. When you get a technique that isn't, let's say, pertaining, I don't know if that's the right word, pertaining to women or to men.
But you'd still be sewing a button, it would just be a different technique of doing that or something.
Oh, got it, yeah. That might be a way to go about it. It might be a next step for it. I just haven't actually been able to reach, to come across a technique that I personally wouldn't consider male or female, traditionally male or female. I mean, they are techniques any male or female can use both sides, both techniques. But I think there's some kind of understanding of gender to a few of them.
What do you think about your audience? Like, most of us know how to sew a button, so you're talking to a very few. So it starts to be, the performance seems to be self-referential rather than audience participation. I like the idea of one of them who said, why don't you go and get a girl in the audience to do it? I like that would kind of like interact, because we do know how to sew a button, so I don't know.
Well, I don't want to touch on it.
I know what you mean, and I would be. I mean, I've never considered actually getting a second person from the audience to do that. That's something I'll be thinking about.
I mean, the idea that some people know how to sew, the idea that you're showing us is kind of patronising.
But then again, I'm not doing it correctly. So anyone who
whether you know how to sew a button or not, because it's not really like specifically about that. I don't think he's trying to like, in a way, he's trying to like teach us something.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, it's a joke, like it's kind of it's a dark joke.
If you take a look at all the steps that I've talked about, they're not entirely correct. There are things I've had to take out of the whole tutorial. There are steps that I had to put in. So they're not entirely, they're not an actual tutorial. I'm not actually teaching.
Well, the question was human. Back to what Lewis was saying, the idea of creating a situation where people are being asked to take stands. And if you aren't trying to do that, is that an issue? Or are you? Because if you're using humor, and it's, like you said, a lovely satire, on an issue that most people maybe don't have the same, well, I mean, semantics with lovely and things like that, but a lot of people's takes on gender issues would be, it's a lovely situation, in Brazil or somewhere else where there's a problem. So it's like, why should we care? Why do we need to engage in your framing of this as something that's going to shed some kind of light? If there should be levity to it, we might want to know why and how far in each direction that levity is being pronounced.
I feel I like it very much. For me, it's very refreshing for what's usually very serious subject, the gender issue, and I enjoyed it very much.
I think it kind of more or less answers to this question in a way. I've been for the research I was doing in men's issues, I researched a lot of women's issues as well. And I came across works from both scales, let's say, of people who were being fairly humorous about it, and people who were being dead serious about it. And it just felt to me, I guess, that when people were being serious, as I was in the beginning of my research, you had a tendency to see the audience just yawn and dismiss all that. Whereas when you got some kind of humor into that, people were actually paying attention. And if you actually got them to think and question that afterwards, that would be even...
It's not just paying attention, it's also the fact that if you talk out to people, then less inclined to listen to you, so they will be more inclined to listen to you, or at least to get a reaction or think of you as the fool, which is what I was going with earlier.
Yeah.
But having said that, like some people in the audience may have said something about, but I can sell a sell button, and then I was familiar with not knowing how to sell a button in a particular example, because I too didn't feel I was 13, most probably. But and then I had to look it up on the internet, I think. But the point I'm trying to make is maybe in the same way that you've done all this research on books and artworks, perhaps because this would work very well in a Mediterranean country, for example, but maybe not in India. Maybe a different example for these audience, because you have yourself said that this is your first performance and you've taken it into performance. If you make the decision to make it into a performance, the art into a performance is because it's time-based and audience-based. It's not because it's following a school and some marina around which is using all of the shop that she ever did, that she could have done if she had taken it further. What I'm trying to say is just perhaps you would need to find an activity that is still deemed as female in London today, not just UK, in London today. And right now I can't think, and I'm sure there are.
Yeah, it's great to ask.
Even the way people smell, or the way people gesticulate, anything that is definitely female, and making sure you don't go into sexual orientation, you stay within the gender definition, and then try again that performance to that audience and see what happens there.
It's interesting because that's a problem I've been having a lot with this DMA. The first thing I actually learned was that there is a cultural difference between Mediterranean, or what we call Latino cultures, and European cultures. And as a whole, I feel
that Mediterranean is not in Europe, but carry on.
Well, yes, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, but yeah, there is a difference from my own personal culture, my own personal background, and the one that I'm experiencing here. And dealing with that has been quite difficult, at the same time challenging and interesting. So I'm taking into account that idea that you had, searching for something that's still deemed as female.
Well, because you're made to audience, so
so I think there's...
I'm not going to stop.
Okay.
No, I'm going on.
I'm thinking of other issues that relate to gender roles, such as economics. Like you were saying, in Brazil, you have a lot of maize, or just materiality of the wood. I think these things are all there. And, for instance, like, I haven't sewn wood before because of economic issues. If my shirt loses a button, I buy one so it goes in first work. I just away or give it to somebody and get another one. And that these things can go into the ideas of gender roles as well, and there's overlap there that might actually reinforce them.
Personally, I'm interested in the gender issue specifically. If the discussion goes into other territories, which, like you said, the economical idea of the maid in Brazil, that's when I started looking at that here and seeing that not a lot of people have that experience. I thought it was interesting as well, but it's kind of like, personally, to me, a side discussion.
Side discussions can lead to...
I just think that I liked the whole performance thing, and I quite liked that you were nervous, and I kind of liked the things that went wrong, but I also liked you talking at the same time. So when you were kind of saying about your girlfriend has this job, and I was thinking what would be quite good is if you had like you kind of talking someone through the main like event or whatever, so you're saying about you're going through stages, but then between that you kind of give these kind of like examples of gender things. So you're talking about your girlfriend, and you're giving examples, and you're kind of, that's the things that was making me think. But I just thought that instantly I thought that everyone warmed to you and everyone was interested. You've got this kind of personality that's delivered quite well. So, but I just thought you needed more of the kind of like, there are more examples of say, oh, my girlfriend does this, or I knew my uncle back in Brazil did blah, 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 or oh, and then I just sew it into stuff. Oh,
I was thinking about doing
kind of
a list of those,
like,
but you know, it's like I said, at some point you just get caught up in this, and I just couldn't think about it. But it is something with more practice. I'd like to do that.
In fact, the British thing that men don't do, or at least they do, but only for a very short period. It's only about it's a 9-year period where men buy their own underwear. From about the age of 19, when their mother stopped buying it, when their girlfriend started to buy it.
Wait, I need to relax. Charlie can I do these? Yeah, okay.
We seem to, throughout this discussion, be assuming of what the other, whether it be me as a female or males, or assuming things about the other that has put up many divides and has kind of been caught up within social assumptions. And do you think that this has actually caused a sexist conversation?
Well, I think the assumptions do cause a sexist conversation, but I think it goes both ways. We're pretty, I think, at least in my experience, we're pretty used to shouting out when the discussion is sexist against the woman. But when the discussion is sexist against the man, it's just understood as humor, basically. The example I always give is Homer Simpson. You get this idea, and it's not just The Simpsons. You have a whole slew of cartoons that portray the father of the family as a complete imbecile, and the mother as brilliant. And nobody says anything about it. If it was the other way,
they still have the power.
And
they can be as stupid as they want. They can be as stupid as they want. I don't like that example. Because in those cartoons that you just portray, the man has the power. He has the ultimate power of decision. And the fact that it's being made impossibly imbecile and fat means that it's a bit like that porn star that was like horrendously ugly and fat. It's the same message. You can do anything you want as a male, because no matter what you look like or how stupid you are, you'll still be on top.
You're still the male.
So that's what it is.
Yes, it's interesting. But because I've seen situations where that particularly happens. It's a sexist discussion, but we only kind of rise up to it when the woman is put down in the discussion.
Because she doesn't need any more of that. Please.
Guys, we have to seriously picking up the point in your research. I was wondering if you found out generally where buttons are produced, and a country that produces buttons.
No, not yet. I don't know. But I think, it might have been interesting even to see who produces